Hello and welcome to the Northeast Ohio Candidate Debates. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mary Kilpatrick. Today we're hosting a debate for the Broadview Heights Council at Large seat, up for election November 5th. The candidates will introduce themselves in a moment, but first, the rules. We will start with 1 minute for each candidate to introduce themselves and explain why they're running. Then we'll ask questions, giving each candidate 90 seconds to answer and a minute for any follow-up. At the end, we will allow for 10 minutes for the candidates to ask each other questions, with 60 seconds permitted for the rules. Let's get started. Can you introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Deborah Boop, and I'm running for City Council at Large in Broadview Heights. I have lived in Broadview Heights for 31 years. The best way to explain why I'm running is because I'm paying attention and I care. I care about the residents, I care about the citizens, and I care about the future of our city.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Brad Clifford, obviously running for council at large as well. 11-year resident of Broadview Heights, lifetime resident of Northeast Ohio. Why am I running? It sounds kind of corny, but I love Broadview Heights. I'm really excited for the potential of the city. I think the city is doing a lot of great things. I want to be part of that. I've got 4 kids in the city, in the school district, that I want to ensure that we're doing the right things for them as well as we go forward.
Sure.
My name is Glenn Goodwin. I'm currently on council at large, running again for the same position. Previously, I was mayor for the city of Broadview Heights for 4 years, and prior to that, I was a Ward 3 councilman. I'm running primarily because I really believe that the city has a tremendous amount of potential, and I think we can capitalize on that with the right synergy going forward. And I'd like to put my input and my experience that I have behind me to make that happen.
Absolutely.
Mary, I'm Jennifer Monick. I've lived in Broadview Heights for a little over 10 years, and I've been on council for 8 of those. Just finishing up my 4th term here at Council at Large. I've had the pleasure of serving with Glenn Goodwin and Joe Price to my left. I really enjoy being that person that residents can call when they're having a problem or concern. I really enjoy being a liaison between residents and the city with the city administration. And that's what I find so rewarding with City Council. I'm really invested in the city. I've been volunteering in most of the nonprofit organizations within the city. I'm here with my husband, and we have 2 small children.
Mary, thank you for having us here tonight, and on behalf, I think, of all the candidates, we appreciate the approach you're taking in regards to this debate. I want to let you know that I'm a candidate for council at large. I have formerly served as a councilman at large individual in the city of Broadview Heights, along with Jennifer Monick. Been very involved in the community. I am a 19-year resident. I'm still involved with municipal government to this day as a village administrator for the village of Grafton, Ohio. Something that I sincerely love. It gives you a daily interaction with the public in that regards. I am running for council primarily, as I have in the past, because of the urging of a number of noted residents in the community. Former Mayor Edna Deffler, who is also a former state rep, and her husband recently wrote me a letter pleading with me to once again consider this race. And with the last minute withdrawal of my friend Jim Giamini, Councilman Jennifer Monick urged me as well, and I appreciate her support in that regard. So that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Well, great. Well, let's get started with our questions. First question. Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas Judge Michael Estraub this year struck down the city's ban on new oil and gas drilling, and the controversy swirling over the wells and their environmental impacts. Are you in favor of oil and gas drilling? What can the city do about this issue?
Well, with regard to the oil and gas wells, we do have many of them currently in our city today. Many of them are functioning. Others seem to be in a holding pattern. With the drop in gas prices, I'm not hearing a lot of interest in new wells at this point, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't come forward. My family has land in southern Ohio. We've had oil wells for many years, responsibly drilled wells that have not harmed the environment. I would be extremely concerned with any oil wells that are what you call fracked. That's a rather common practice now. But responsible drilling it's been going on for years. And what I'm also concerned with is the residents and the neighborhoods around them. We want to make sure that the neighborhoods still have that family feel. This is not a place for oil well fields to be placed. This is a city resident. They need to be thought through very carefully.
Sure.
I am against any residential oil drilling or gas drilling, either one. The fracking obviously is a fairly new practice with seemingly not perfect results environmentally. It just, in my opinion, just in residential areas, it has no place, really. When it's done in properties of 5, 10, 15 acres, whatever, done responsibly outside of a residential town, then that's a different thing. But the residents are pretty clear that they don't want it. They voted in that Bill of Rights that tried to strike it down, which obviously got overturned then. But they've been pretty clear with that they don't really want this in our city, and I tend to agree with them. And I think trying to fight it, unfortunately, would be a very expensive cause that, in talking with a couple of different lawyers, would just net us with the same result, that we're not going to get anywhere. The state has basically overridden and taken away the right of the city to government the drilling in their cities.
Mr. Goodwin?
I don't believe in any oil and gas drilling especially in our developments within the city. People build homes in these fine developments, and I think that they expect not to be out in the rural country where something like that might be a little more acceptable. I've been through this issue over the years in the position of mayor and as councilman, and it's been certainly a hot topic. It's a very difficult question because the state has taken away our right to be able to control, and it's much more than just even the oil and gas well drilling. It's the fact that the state has removed us from being able to control our destiny, and that I have a problem with, and that is something that I continue to work at, to strive to get back that home rule for our municipality so that we can determine our destiny, not the state of Ohio. We here have our own individual footprint, and we like to keep it that way. And the gas and oil well drilling was pulled away from our ability to be able to control that. And I think it's caused a lot of dissension, and it's caused some environmental damage in some cases, and we need to be able to get that control back. It's just very fortunate right now that the price of gas and oil has stopped that from happening. With over 90 active wells in the city, we've become the target. Thank you.
Ms. Malnick?
I would agree with Mr. Goodwin. Our hands as a city government are tied, but we have been fighting for our residents of Broadview Heights, whether it's supporting their efforts in the Bill of Rights or going to court over this issue. Glenn and I have certainly been to bat over that issue. When this really became a hot topic in the city of Broadview Heights around 2007, 2009, Joe and I were one of the first council people in the city of Broadview Heights to vote against the drilling. And it's not so much about whether it's right or what it's wrong, or if it's wrong. My opinion is residents should have the vote and an opinion on what happens on their property. When your neighbor decides to put a well in their yard, which right now by law they can, you have no rights. They can put it up very close to your property line, and in the beginning right up to it. Now council has fought for setbacks, and we are trying to work with drillers to try to add buffer zones if possible, or not even have them in the area. I think what council needs to continue to do is educate residents, working with groups like Madion to inform residents what they're really getting into. Joe and I, for a number of years, have monthly meetings with residents, and I'm sure he can attest this. We would have residents come and talk to us and tell us that they signed up for these leases, but it wasn't exactly what they thought it was going to be.
Mr. Price?
Thank you. Let me first not be a hypocrite. I don't think there's a person in this room that doesn't use natural gas. So it is something that we all do consume, and it is a need in the country. The issue is this. The House Bill 278 in 2004 created a lot of things. It took away home rule, as has been mentioned, but a very key thing is it created an entity called forced mandatory pooling, and it takes even more rights away from the individual now. So what it has done is created and pitted neighbor against neighbor, and that's what, as council members, we've gotten in between these arguments and these debates. If someone owns 20 acres of land, God bless them, and they want to put it in the middle and it don't bother their neighbors, let them do it. But it's when you divide a community and you create grief and you create worry and anguish over this. The House Bill 278 hurt a lot of people in Northeast Ohio. What this state does not realize is basically 85% of the gas that is pulled from this state comes from Northeast Ohio. During that period, and I think Brad mentioned 80, 90 some wells, during that period, 15% of all new gas wells being drilled in the state were in Broadview Heights. One community, 15%. Where else do you get that kind of proliferation? It has been a fight. House Bill 278 also has now damaged the Voters' Bill of Rights. My God, we the people. Why do we no longer have we the people in this country? What a dirtbag legislature and a ruling from a judge to take away my rights to say no. So with that, I have a lot of problems with gas wells in regards to that. So thanks for asking that question tonight.
I understand. Does anybody have any response to any of the answers? All right, well, we'll move on to the next question. As I'm sure you're aware, deer population continues to surge, and many residents are fed up with animals eating their flowers and stomping in the yards. The animals also pose a safety threat to drivers. How can the city deal with the deer population?
Well, with regard to the deer population, I can tell you I have the equivalent of Santa's reindeer in my backyard just about every day. They traipse through. I do not have any landscaping, so I can appreciate the frustration. I can also tell you that it breaks my heart in the wintertime to see the starvation and the fact that there really is a problem. The voters said very clearly they do not want bow and arrow hunting in our city. We also have to realize that the deer don't recognize city borders. So this is not just unique to Broadview Heights. This is a Brecksville, Independence, North Royalton, Seven Hills issue as well. I would be very much in favor of working with the ODNR to try to evaluate solutions that may have worked in other areas. Again, had the residents not said, we absolutely do not want them culled in our city, that may be an option, but they've already spoken. So with that said, I know there are other options that are out there, and I would be happy to evaluate any of those that are brought forward.
Sure. Any response?
Yeah. So it's going to sound very familiar, but working as a city, we can't do this just as us. We don't live in a vacuum. Deer don't know what zip code they're in. They're going to go wherever they want to go. We've got a lot of different wilderness type areas within Brecksville, Broadview Heights, Seven Hills, Independence, North Royalton, Richfield, all those things. So we have to work together with those other communities and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to come up with a workable plan that everybody agrees upon, something that will, unfortunately, it has to be culled. You have to knock down the population of deer. I mean, there is an absolute safety risk, and my fear is that it gets to a point where it becomes, accidents are happening, lives are put at risk. I mean, they're already at risk, but God forbid something happens to, my daughter driving to school one day because a pack of 10 deer decided to cross Mill Street that morning, and she hits one, something happens to her. So we can't just sit idly by and maybe they'll go away. I mean, we have to work together with the other communities, come up with a plan that works for everybody, unified, and make that plan happen.
Mr. Goodwin?
Boy, what a tough issue. Certainly, it's a very decisive issue in our city. We can have our council chambers filled over that issue as the most important issue sometimes. That's just simply not solvable at this time. But we have to keep working to make something happen, that's for sure. As I walk the city and talk to people over the years, certainly there's a huge divide of the way people feel about deer, and I think that's why you get some of the results when we ask that question, at the polls. The north end, northern 2/3 of the city is just ravaged by the deer population. You can't grow most plants. The deer have morphed into eating things that they never ate before. You have to be careful just backing out your driveway that you don't even hit a deer. We have one of the highest deer concentrations in the state of Ohio in our city, and it is just getting bigger and bigger by the day. So we do need to look at some sort of solutions. If you're on the south end of town, people that live in McIntosh Farms in New Hampton, there isn't an issue to them. Simply, when you talk to those people, they rarely see deer. Their landscapes aren't being eaten. They don't, have the same accident rate necessarily going, into their subdivision. But we're going to work together as cities, because that's the only way we can accomplish that. And the leadership of our city, our mayors, have been working towards that, and we're going to come up with a solution.
Sure. Ms. Melnick?
Well, you certainly know the two hot topics in Broadview Heights. This is definitely the other one. The deer issue is certainly something council and the city administration has been working on. When I first got elected, one of the first thing we spent almost a year and a half working on was how to control deer. And I was a member of the Service and Safety Committee, and I remember listening to the police chief at the time constantly bringing us data and showing us if we were to allow hunting, because at that time the ballot issue wasn't voted on yet, what the results would be. When we looked at the data and compared it with other cities that are nearby, because yes, deer don't know area codes, we have found that you weren't seeing the reduction in car accidents that people were expecting to see. I think when residents are calling us, asking, demanding in some cases, we do something about the deer, they're expecting that particular deer or family that is in their yard will stop, and that's not the reality of it. I've had the opportunity to live in actually all 4 wards of the city of Broadview Heights while building a house or remodeling a house, and I've lived in 4 different environments. And whether it's living on a large acre or near a farm, I haven't had a deer problem. And one of the ways that I've helped resolve that is I've gone and educated myself on what type of products to put in my yard and those kinds of things. So I see her waving, so I will stop. But it's definitely something that's been on our radar that we've been fighting for.
Mr. Price?
It is. It's a very difficult subject, and it is a subject that is divided in the community. Debbie, you've got a neighbor a couple doors down who's a dear friend of mine and a very, very dear friend of mine, and he's feeding the deer. We know that, and we've had many a discussion. The problem with the deer is they become domesticated. There's not any of us that haven't seen deer literally walk up to cars, and they've gotten smarter. That's why they're not being hit by as many cars. Still, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources says that 12 deer per square mile is an overpopulation. I could take you into a lot probably right now in Broadview Heights, and there might be as many as 45 deer in one lot. So there is a problem. We did try to address it as council. They brought forward a hunting ordinance. It had some possibilities. I wanted to see something done. I think everybody here would have liked to see something done, but there were major, major safety concerns. There was going to be hunting in people's backyards, and I mean very tight and small backyards. There were reports about arrows going through houses and killing babies in cribs. And when it came down to it, I know Councilwoman Jennifer Monick and myself, all on council, we both polled the residents. As much as I wanted it, I represent the people. I represent the people. I don't represent myself. So in that regards, it came down to me voting against it. Jennifer voted against it, so did Councilman Bob Bolt, who's still now, he's council president. So in that regards, it wasn't divided. Even council narrowly passed that ordinance by 1, but we did do something special. We were able to get it repealed through a vote of the people and a referendum vote. So
Right.
that did work for the people. The system worked. Thank you.
Any response from anyone?
Can I make a comment, please?
Absolutely.
I just want to reiterate the urgency of this situation with the deer in Broadview Heights. A natural predator for the deer are coyotes, and there is starting to be an influx of coyotes on the north end of town. You can hear them howling most nights, and it's not an issue that can be kicked down the road. We have to address this. We have to address this soon, or we will be overrun by something much more threatening than deer.
Yes.
I was just going to add, the last term of council officers that was on the service, and I believe, or was it Rules and Ordinance? Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong. decided, they had the issue back in their committee, and they decided to turn it over to the city administration. So it has been in the city's administration's hands at this point. There are methods that residents might feel that we can use, but through laws and regulations, we can't use them. So it's not as easy as saying, birth control method, for example, or hiring sharpshooters. We also have to protect the law that was passed by the residents. So in some sense, our hands are tied, but it is in the hands of the administration per I believe it was the Rules and Ordinance Committee moved it there.
Mr. Price?
Yeah, there is some hunting going on in Broadview Heights through nuisance permits, which is tolerated and allowed by the ODNR. None of us have argued that. And it's happening in the metro parks. But one thing I want my two friends to the right, and we all know each other pretty well, is that when you take on this issue, be prepared, because PETA will tag you with 3,000 to 4,000 emails, and you will blow up your email system.
Yes.
I do
So
want to add something.
it is not easy.
Very briefly, it's such a difficult quest for not only our city, but every city surrounding. There's problems on the east side, there's problems on the west side of Cuyahoga County. It's throughout the county, and it's in Medina County and Summit County. They're having the very same issues. So we're not unique, and nobody's come up with the right solution. I will tell you this, that I truly believe, and not that we should sit on our hands and wait for this, but you will see very soon a disease called chronic wasting disease that's starting to enter the deer herds here in the state of Ohio. And if and when it does come to Broadview Heights, you will see mass annihilation of deers. Unfortunately, it will be an environmental issue that wipes them out with that disease. And not anybody wants to see dead and dying deer, but it is coming here, and it's going to be here in the near future.
Well, on that note, let's go to the next question. I wanted to ask you, to what extent do you believe Broadview Heights should be involved in regionalism or sharing services? The city planned to use a new Cuyahoga County Emergency Operations Center to dispatch its safety forces. Now that that's fallen through, what should the city do for dispatch?
My understanding with the Cuyahoga County Emergency Operations Center that was supposed to be located in Broadview Heights was a partnership between the city and the county. It would result in a number of new jobs coming to the city. It would also result in additional services being provided to the city at little to no cost. It would also provide for police and fire radios, which my understanding is those are sorely over need. There's a extreme need for those types of things. I believe a partnership is still a possibility. However, if the county decides they're not going to build a building, it is imperative for them to at least keep up with some sort of an arrangement that creates that continuity among the city and the county. Again, emergency services, we have our police, we have our local fire. We know that they have to stay in constant communication with each other. Help us out with the radios, because that was promised as part of the deal. My understanding is the city was also working on creating a partnership with either the Beechwood Center or one of the other ones.
I was saddened to hear that deal fell apart. It seemed like a great idea for everybody involved, and it sounded like a very positive thing for the city. So really kind of a bummer, if you will, that it didn't happen. Moving forward now, I mean, we should obviously explore sharing services with other cities or counties in the area. It just makes sense financially. You can defray costs across the board, that type of thing. But honestly, if we can't find a situation that works great for us, then we stay on our own and we handle it in-house like we have in the past.
Mr. Goodwin.
Well, you really hit a sore spot there. It was during my administration as mayor, we had started initiative contact with the county and had worked towards making that happen. The county being very slow to react took a number of years to be, but rightly so, a very expensive proposition for them to come up with, greater than $15 million to build a facility. It would have been very beneficial, certainly for the city, between the expense of dispatch and those employees, the income tax wages that we received off that. But at this point, it's fallen through. I recently spoke with Jack Schron, who is our Cuyahoga County Council's representative, and he feels that he can turn this into, take the lemons and turn it into lemonade, was his quote. And I hope that he does that, because economically it would have been one of the best things that probably could have happened for our community, since we spend over $135,000 annually on our dispatch expenses, plus the income that would have come in from those wages. And we don't have, couldn't build a tax base big enough, I think, in these days to account for what we would have gotten out of that. That's just one facet, though, but what we really have to work is with not only just the dispatch, and we have to make that happen in the future, but we also need to work with all of our other services to make, share those services, but still keeping our individual footprint. So.
Although we're not getting the center, which would have offered, great training opportunities as well, we do what I will call mini regionalism. We do work with our local cities and communities around us, and we do share facilities, not necessarily facilities, but services. If they need us out for a run, we will go there. So we are doing that already, just not at a larger scale. I know some communities will even share a police chief or a fire chief that will kind of rule or organize over 2 different communities or even 3. That can be a safe savings to a community as well. But that would, be council and the administration working together to do something like that. But we recently passed a fire levy, so we've been able to make sure all of our service and safety forces are equipped with technology and gear and things that they do need. And just this past month, we've heard both of our service safety people coming up with grants that they're writing or receiving. So we are moving in the positive direction despite this.
Sure. Mr. Price.
Regionalism is something that's bantered around, and who really understands it? Is it about creating a metropolitan government? Well, obviously, you've got multiple agencies that are going to fight that. Let me let everyone know that Broadview Heights is a very collaborative community. There was a call not too long ago to the north of town. You had Broadview Heights Fire Department there, Independence, Brecksville, North Royalton, and Seven Hills. You want to talk about collaboration, you couldn't have seen it any better. It's been happening for quite some time. We are a very generous community. We are open to working with other communities. We are not at all a selfish community. Doesn't mean we're a wealthy community. We do a lot with very little. So from that standpoint, I basically commend the administration and the mayor. And with all due respect to Glenn, this emergency response center was nothing compared to what was talked about in 2004, because basically we had a whole new situation in Cuyahoga County. We had a county executive come into office, and we had a council, and this was a whole new idea. Unfortunately, and I just can't help but say my personal feelings, and this is all I'm expressing. I'm not going to create a political fervor here, but this was a political football. And unfortunately, the city of Broadview Heights and its residents and its tax base basically are the result of a poor punt in that regards from the county. I will tell you that Mr. Budish disappointed a lot of people in that regards, as he did as a state rep, in regards to what he did on House Bill by not taking a stand against House Bill 278. Now, he was, part of that. So.
Well, thank you very much. Does anyone have any response?
Yeah, I do want to follow up with Joe. You're right. That's exactly what happened with that. When we initially started talks with that dispatch center, it was going to be a reasonably priced facility, and it would have been very beneficial for the city. Somehow that got away. I don't, between administration or county council itself or the county administrator, got away from it and became a runaway vehicle that just expanded, so it became too pricey to be able to happen. So hopefully they can come back and
Yes.
bring those costs down and still make it happen in our community, because it would be very beneficial for us. But, and also a point about Jennifer that brought up about our city services, and Joe both, that we do use joint dispatch, where we use our police and fire, our safety force, and we have for a great deal of time. At one time I was on the county Mayors and Managers Association committee, where we examine regionalism, and some of those regionalism issues there, we list all of those, and there's many different ways, like we do joint purchasing of salt supplies and many other things, and so, we're going to continue that and add to that.
Thank you. Sure.
If I could just make one final comment, I want everybody that's going to see this debate know that the city of Broadview Heights did everything it could to keep that, and there was no fault on any part of the administration or council in that regards. And I'm not currently on council, so I commend them for taking the stand that they have and the fight that they're fighting in that regard. So thank you.
Sure. All right, our next question. Flooding continues to be a major issue in Broadview Heights, with residents complaining of flooded basements and homes. Is this a city issue, or is this the residents' responsibility? And what can be done to improve stormwater overflows?
Well, I can tell you in many of my conversations talking with residents, as well as those that take the effort to come to city council meetings, yes. And there is a definite stormwater flooding issue, and it spreads across the city. It's not concentrated to one particular area. To my comment again about the deer, the water doesn't recognize zip codes, area codes. And so in order to create some sort of a long-term solution, it has to be a multi-city approach. Water runs downhill, unless you're at Magic Mountain in Sandusky, but it has to be managed appropriately. Now, the Ohio Supreme Court just ruled last week, I believe it was, that the stormwater management plan would be taken over by the Northeast Ohio Sewer District. Therefore, they have been charged with creating a storm management program for the area. In the meantime, the city does have some key initiatives that they can focus on to finish up targeted areas within the city to alleviate some issues and then provide a great level of input for the Northeast Ohio Sewer District when they're developing their plan.
First, you took great restraint waiting till the fifth or sixth question to hit flooding. I was waiting for that one or two. I'm like, wow, we're not talking about flooding. And to answer your question, yes, it's clearly an issue in the city, and it is a citywide, it's a city issue, in addition to a regional issue, but the city definitely needs to take care of it. And then they've done a lot of things recently over the last few years to make improvements in that area. A number of retention ponds have gone in. Those seem to be helping. The city just bought a new piece of machinery that will actually go in and basically it's a giant vacuum that will suck out the storm sewers, because the problem is they get clogged with silt and leaves and sticks and all that kind of stuff, garbage, whatever. So this new machine, which in talking with the service director, has been a huge help for them. They just recently purchased it. So that's going to help a lot. The third thing I want to mention is we've got to be, and we have done a pretty good job of this recently, but we've got to be more proactive on the front end. We can't allow new developments to go in, or even new singular homes to go in spaces where it's going to cause another water issue. So we have to make sure that the city engineers are involved, that we get their buy-in before we start putting new parking lots or anything that's going to affect water runoff. We have to make sure they're involved with it as well. And as Ms.
Ouch.
Debbie mentioned the NEO RSD is now going to take this over. We need to make sure as they take that over that we still have our hands in the pie, as it were, as making sure that we are still maintaining control of things that are happening in our city.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes, it's been an issue for the city since before time, and it's something that we've made steady progress in, but we still need to continue that progress for that, even as Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District takes over that. We need to keep moving forward. That we can't have residents living there in certain conditions, that a few of them. It has diminished greatly, I will tell you, as my elected time has gone and we've worked on these issues, it has diminished greatly. And during my time in the past, I know that we spent much time being proactive to make sure that we don't have these future problems. We went storm requirements for new developments. We went from 5-year to 10-year, 10-year to 25-year storm requirements, so that developers that are putting in retention basins now, these retention basins are much bigger, they're better built. We have the newest developments. We don't really have many issues, very few issues in our newest developments. But we got to go back. We got to plug all the holes in the dike, and we got to go back there and fix all of these issues. We're chipping away at that, certainly. Finance is the biggest problem, always. Money always is. And, as we work with that, we've had a stormwater fee in place for that, and we've also dedicated some money from the general fund from taxation, and we've made that steady progress towards that, those solutions, and we're going to keep going even after, I believe, after, Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District takes them.
Thank you. Ms. Malnick?
Well, your original question, I believe, was, is this a personal issue or is this a city issue? There are situations that they are private, personal owners' problems, unfortunately. What I'm finding, and I'm sure Glenn and Joe can attest to this, is sometimes residents are purchasing property as is, or they're purchasing property without an inspection, and they're finding that errors were made on their property, whether they got a permit and built something, and sometimes those are causing flooding not only on their own property but on their neighbor's property. As those things come up, the city tries to do the best that they can within, the rules of the law. There are some issues that are more city-wide issues. When I first started at council, the previous council had voted to install a $4 fee that residents have been paying. We've been using that money to aggressively attack these larger issues. When I first started on council, we kind of made a list of how much they would be, what are the biggest problems, how many people are being affected, and we're at the very tail end of that. Although the county is going to be taking over, what does that mean? We've been talking as a council, that's not going to take care of individual problems or smaller problems. There's a set of rules and guidelines of things that they will cover. So council, I'm sure, will be discussing shortly, what are we going to do? Are we going to be continuing the fee to handle in-house projects so that we can finish off those tasks? That's a conversation I'm sure we'll be having shortly.
Sure. Mr. Price?
June 6, 2006, the city of Broadview Heights was hit with a 100-year storm.
Yes.
It was very bad. There were 376 homes that were reported flooded. A lot of people blaming the mayor. It wasn't the mayor's fault. It was just a lot of bad engineering. The city has long made a lot of strides to create new engineering standards greater than. In fact, we had another 100-year storm less than 2 weeks later. So to go to show the standard is no longer really there. Chris Burwald, former councilman at large, did introduce this utility in 2007. It has done a lot of good. There is measures in place and legislation in place to protect the community, that if we find that it is a homeowner's problem and or a contractor's problem, something that was hit, it's their responsibility. However, we did also take a stride and introduce legislation that if it affected 3 or more property owners, we could get involved. I'm trying to do that same legislation right now, by the way, in the village of Grafton, because it will benefit them. A great piece of legislation put into place in 2005. Craig Makovic actually introduced it along with Sam Ally. So outstanding piece of legislation. And basically, when it comes down to stormwater, you're right, Debbie. Water flows downhill. It comes from North Royalton on to us. We add more to it and give it to Brecksville.
Yeah.
So they have the problem as well. And Brecksville has been blessed with funding that has helped them handling it a little bit faster. And Brad, in your neighborhood, we bought land in 2 places. Well, we bought land. One place was donated land. I don't know if you know it. Your neighbors are in West Ridge. Their backyards are in the city of North Royalton. We need to work with them to annex that into the city of Broadview Heights so we can help manage their problem for them in that regards. It's not their fault. It's something that was set up a long time ago. So thanks for asking that question.
Thank you. Does anyone have any response?
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
Okay. The one thing that came up recently at a city council meeting that I think would be helpful to the residents is letting the residents know which areas are being targeted for city improvements on a short-term basis. There was a report by the engineering department listing specific streets, specific areas that were on the radar screen to be addressed in the short-term future. I had asked at the city council meeting that that list be presented to the website, and I know that there are certain rules that require the city to reach out to impacted residents. But I think that transparency would be helpful for residents to know that the city is addressing some key areas, as opposed to the city isn't doing anything, why aren't they listening? There are good things happening behind the scenes, and I think getting that message out is key.
Ms. Malnick?
Along with those lines, it's also about educating residents. One of our stormwater management projects the Vector truck is what you mentioned. This current council fought for that because for a long time we were just leasing it for a month or two. Now we fought very hard to get it, so we have it 12 months out of the year.
And you're referring to the machine that sucks the...
Yes,
sucks
Vector
the,
truck, yes.
Yeah, so it basically sucks the...
sediment and silt, yes,
Out
all
of-
kinds of fun stuff that is
out
in.
of the sewer. Okay,
Right.
I just want to make sure everybody
And
knows.
some of them are so high that you can see through the grates that there's dirt built up. That's how deep some of these are. So now we'll be able to do that all of the time, or even rent it out if we need to other communities, and that will be a source of income for us. But the retention basin is also another problem. Recently, the engineering department, they always give us a map and they show us the retention basins, which ones are in good working condition. Some people are buying property with retention basins, but they don't realize that they have to maintain it. And if they don't maintain it properly, then it can't hold the water, and now we start to flood people. And that is one of the problems that council is working on right now, is how do we get individual private property-owned retention basins to comply.
Thank you. Yes.
In regards to the Vector truck, we did have one once before. It became mechanically infeasible
Right.
to keep operating, so they did do away with it. I want to basically voice the importance to it. Those storms, when they hit on June the 6th, 2006, the city of Strongsville was not immune to it. They got hit heavily as well. The first thing they did was bought 2 Vector trucks, 2 crews, put it out there, put a system out there. They still routinely maintain those, the whole community, which is a lot bigger, probably 3 times the size of Broadview Heights, and they reduced their flooding by 98%. That's why it's key to clean those basins and make sure that's being done, and I'm glad that council took the step to make sure that's going to happen again.
Yeah. I want to emphasize that because during my administration, through my administration as mayor, we had that Vector truck and we used it on a daily basis. We had a storm sewer crew and sanitary sewer crew out on a daily basis that worked on all the sanitary lines and the storm sewer lines. And unfortunately, when things got tighter, in the future there, that emphasis disappeared. And when that truck became old and unworthy, it disappeared also. So it's been very much a bone of my contention on the council to insist that we bring that truck back. In fact, I threatened to vote against the budget one year just because I felt so strongly about it. But it's coming back, and certainly I think it's going to help solve a lot of our other minor problems, as part of that. We have a long way to go still, but we're getting near there, and we're working, and we're going to make it happen. I just want to mention one other thing was that I was proud to be part of a council when I first got on that changed those rules as far as how close in proximity you could build a building to stormwater facilities, and that's made a big difference also in our city for the future.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have one. Actually, just to let everybody know what Grafton did. A little Grafton, Ohio, put in an they call it an EQ basin. It's a $5 million gallon basin that when we have an over-inundation of stormwater, it pumps all of that, including the raw sewage that gets dumped into the system, into there and holds it in a large 5 million gallon holding tank and then processes it through its wastewater treatment plant. It has eliminated most of the flooding there as well.
And you know that because you work for the city of Grafton?
Absolutely. I'm very proud of that, and it's something that's going to help us with economic development and future expansion of the village.
Just wanted to let everybody know why you were mentioning Grafton.
Well, and as a possibility for Broadview Heights if we should decide to do that as well.
Absolutely.
Brexville put a very large retention basin in Broadview Heights. They bought land in Broadview Heights and dumped their water here.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got to get to the next question.
Thank you.
So my next question, the state has cut local government funds in half in recent years. How has Broadview Heights coped with the loss of money? What other ideas do you have to help save money?
Well, I can tell you from watching the financial reports, reading the state auditor reports, Broadview Heights is in a good financial position right now. They've been very fiscally responsible, and again, I give a lot of accolades to the mayor and the current city council and administration for doing that. With regard to future loss of funding, like any home, when the money gets cut, you have to start looking at needs versus wants. I'm not hearing that that is a significant issue in our city today, but we also have to anticipate things can change. Property taxes Everybody just got their notices within the last month, so they know they're going to be paying more. How are we using that fiscally responsibly to not only keep our city in the black, but financially responsible to the citizens, to the residents?
You said the words a couple times there, fiscal responsibilities, the key. And this administration has done a very good job of that, being smart about what we spend money on, saving money for a real rainy day or whatever you want to call it. You know, the general fund, I believe, is up 3 times what it was a couple years ago. We've done a tremendous job of setting budgets properly, sticking to budgets, saving money where we needed to, spending wisely instead of just, we need everything, buy everything. I mean, they've done a very good job of that. You can't predict the future, of course. The government may come back and say, okay, now you get X less dollars. And again, like kind of what Debbie said, you then hunt for places where you can save money, being smart about things. Hopefully you've saved up, which is what we are doing for those occasions, and then you move forward. Make a plan, stick to the plan.
Sure. Mr. Goodwin.
I will say, being on council, that this council has been very, very fiscally responsible, and they are examining every single expenditure, and we go over the budget with a fine-tooth comb. And I think that, very importantly, that we do make sure. Some people have asked me in the past, why did you vote against something? I simply have no problem about voting no. I am not going to go along with the crew if I feel that it's not going to be fiscally responsible and it's not going to be best to the city. We have to be very careful. These are tough times, and we need to be very fiscally responsible with every dime that we have. In addition to that, we need to create a tax base. And that's very important, that our economic development, that we get some responsible development, things that are high net gains to the city. Simply residential is nice for people to have new housing stock to be able to move into, but it's actually a net drag on the city budget. And we have to make sure that we develop things that will help offset those, our finances there, so that we can end up with, continue to have the fine services that we have and the fine community that we all live in.
Ms. Malnick?
You know, I think being in a good financial situation is relative. You mentioned that you felt that we were in a healthy place. One of our last finance meetings that we were at, our financial director suggested that although we're at $3 million in unencumbered funds, $5 million would be a better place. When I first started out on council, we were, I believe, below $1 million. So over time, we've been able to save quite a few millions. But are we doing our best in taxpayers' money? I'm not sure. Recently, council had to make a decision on to give council raises and the mayor raises. And Glenn and I decided no, and the rest of council gave 8% raises to their positions and an 18% raise to the mayor position. And Glenn and I both voted against budgets that were inflated with raises to department heads that are appointed by or selected by the mayor and voted on by council. In 1 year, some of those department heads got $15,000 raise, a $9,000 raise. And is that being fiscally responsible when we have issues like flooding? Maybe we could have used that money to help resolve somebody else's issue. So there's more to this story than just what's on paper.
Sure. Mr. Price.
Thank you. Fiscal responsibility. It is not the responsibility, first and foremost, of the administration. We should make that clear. It's not. It is, the purse strings are held by council. So the mayor can't spend a lot of this money without their support. So I commend the council, current and past. And when Glenn left office and you came in, it was actually at 1.7 million, but the market we had an economy that kind of crashed and it dropped down to 900 and some odd thousand dollars. So it did take a quick dip. When I came on to council in 2009, when I left, we were at 3.5 million, an all-time high. We more than doubled it in that 2-year period, and it was through fiscal responsibility. Now, while you voted against that pay raise, you recall I fought for a pay reduction in council during a very difficult time, a very tough subject, because I would walk into neighboring communities, and another mayor would walk up to me and says, "You're a problem for me, Mr. Price, because I want to raise my pay, and you're creating anxiety here for us." It was tough, and I twice motioned, and Jennifer did support both of those motions to reduce compensation of our elected officials during a difficult time, to show at the very core fiscal responsibility. Now, the grace we had was we settled with a 0% pay raise, so I'm grateful to the mayor and council, and it was council's decision in that regards. For the fiscal future responsibility, there are some concerns. The actual increase for the mayor ended up being 18.2%, which will impact the bottom line in the end. So, thank you.
Sure. Well, any response, Ms. Malnick?
Yes, Mr. Price mentioned that council really holds the purse strings. There are limitations to that. We can set, for example, for department heads, a pay range, but within that range, the mayor can set it, which is one of the most recent discussions. You know, I think some of us were concerned about because our service director, who had been there for 25 years or so, left, and now we have a new one. And maybe we should take a look at the pay range because it was set for someone who had, 25 years in and a lot of experience. There are also other things that the mayor can make purchases for as long as it falls underneath a certain range. So we don't have a vote on everything.
Right.
I think sometimes we would like to have more of an opinion than we do. But it's a blend between the two, administration and city council.
I think you hit it on the head there, Jennifer, absolutely, because we have to work with the administration. That's the only way. We can't work against each other, but we have to work together,
Right.
Very importantly, because we have to appropriate money for him to be able to spend it or her. And the mayor, needs to be able to spend that money responsibly. Yeah, and if not, I think he's going to hear it. I mean, I would hope that would happen in any community. Absolutely.
If not, we'll hear it.
We'll hear it, and we want to make sure that we're doing our job right.
And Glenn is key to that. He is right. But council does approve the budget. So if they didn't, even the mayor wouldn't be able to throw out those $10,000 checks. So in that regards, the council is the core supporter of that fiscal responsibility, and I think the next council should. And that starts with, by the way the forefathers of this country created the state of Ohio, the county of Cuyahoga, and the city of Broadview Heights. There should be a separation of power between the legislative side and the administrative side. It's there for a reason, and that's why you gotta watch who is out there endorsing who, because it can prevent that issue and block that issue of separation. It is a concern.
Any other comments?
I do have a comment. The finance director in Broadview Heights had announced that she was getting the letter from the state auditor showing the review of the financials for the city of Broadview Heights. I would encourage any interested resident to read that document. It is public record. It will be made available, and residents should be able to glean key points that the auditor is looking at. So if there are areas of concern or areas where the city has really shined, they should be aware of those issues.
Yeah, I just want to follow up. One thing is our finance director is doing a very good job.
Absolutely.
She's very, very knowledgeable. She works very hard at her job. I do want to bring out that during my administration, the city has always worked very hard, I think, at the finances. And during my administration, I was proud that we had gotten a bond upgrade from Moody's. And since then we have not, but we're going to work very hard because that will save us on borrowing costs for assessment projects. And to keep that bond rating, we are now within the top 5% of all municipalities when that upgrade came in 2005, of all municipalities in the nation in our rating.
All right. Well, we've come to the portion of our debate where you will be allowed to ask each other questions. If you'd like, you could ask the question to the table or to a specific person. You will have 60 seconds to answer the question. I'm just going to go around the table. So, Ms. Hoop.
Well, the first question that I would have, and this is for the folks that are currently on city council, because I don't know what happens at all the service meetings. You mentioned this Vector truck that we purchased. We know now that the Northeast Ohio Sewer District is taking over the stormwater management projects. We just invested a lot of money on a piece of equipment. How do you anticipate either using that as a revenue source for us in the future, or how do you see that fitting in, knowing that somebody else is going to be taking over a lot of the operations?
Well, one of the things we mentioned earlier is is I know when you're reading it in the paper and stuff, it sounds like they're going to come in and save the day and handle all of our stormwater issues. They're not. We've had a lot of discussions with them and forums with them discussing this. They're not going to handle all of these issues. So they will still become a very important tool to use in our community. Please don't be fooled by they're taking over and they're gonna handle it. There are residents that will not fall under that category, and they will not get relief from the county. So we will need to be there and to do that. And like you've mentioned, all the waste and stuff that's in there, we need a machine going 24 hours or, you know, two shifts at least. We certainly have a lot of repair work to do, and then once we get there, we can start working on preventative measures.
Yeah, very importantly, because by owning that piece of equipment, we have the ability as mayor, as council, to react immediately for our residents. And, you know, unfortunately, and I'm not trying to criticize, you know, any other government agency, but let's face it, you get lost in this sea of government red tape sometimes trying to get relief from something. We know in our city that we can pick up that phone and we will get a response immediately with it, as we have in the past. And you know what? If it's raining out there and your basement's flooding,
You want immediate?
you want it immediately. You don't want to wait.
The factor will raise no revenues. It will be a cost.
Well,
but,
we could rent it out if we needed to.
if we
release
did
it out.
that.
Yeah.
But what it will do is what Glenn touched on, save lives. When we have flooding, the first responder is going to be your next door neighbor, then the police, then the fire, and then maybe your councilman, whoever it's going to be. The county will be inundated, and they'll be the last ones that show up at our
Right.
doorstep. But if that factor can go over and unplug a drain that keeps someone from drowning in their basement, then God bless us for doing it. So that's the importance of having that machine on hand. And even though the county's going to be there to help, so we've been told, we hope that
Right.
you know, we will be able to care for ourselves first and foremost and protect the safety and welfare of the community.
And when it was explained to us, I mean, when they first came out and said, you know, if the county takes over, we would have to have the problem, write to them, tell them about the problem, then they're going to have to make a decision. Should, you know, do we help them? Do they follow under the... In the meanwhile, you know, Betty has all of her memories flooded 5 feet in her basement. We cannot wait for them to be our first responders. And I think that that's a big misconception people have, is that we still won't need our internal services.
Yeah, that regional ability to be able to control will be beneficial for certain projects, because there are some that we can't work within
Right.
ourselves, within our own borders. However, the county's plan is to work on a regional basis. They're working on the big picture. We need to be able to concentrate on the small picture, on those infinite little small fixes that we need. And this piece of equipment will be vital, you know, to make sure that that happens there, that piece of equipment. I can't tell you how invaluable that will be. And even the regional sewer district has said that only 25% of those revenues they collect from any community will return back to those communities anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Any other questions for the table? All right. Well, thanks again for joining us, and thank you for joining me here today. Everyone watching at home, you can check back on cleveland.com to read stories about the debate, issues, and candidates for the upcoming election. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for coming.
No blood.
I had no